You're now listening to Vices and Vultures, a podcast on cultures. Welcome back to the Unpacked segment of Vices and Vultures, where we share from our collection of solo interviews done by the co-hosts. What's going on, everybody? This is A2. One of the cultures that has led to people such as Bill featuring on Fridays for the podcast is the specialty coffee scene. I first discovered it in New York City back in 2017 and promptly saw the large movement of the latte art community. From there, I met roasters, shop owners, and so many more people. It even took me out of New York City, and the next voice you will hear is the number one lady I have so much respect for doing coffee out in the Midwest. Jasmin McGinnis is a business owner of, among many things, a specialty coffee shop concept based in Kearney, Nebraska. Her story opens up not only her involvement with coffee in smaller markets, but also how her life is so intertwined with coffee.
Hi, I'm Jasmin. I'm one of the owners of Baristas Daily Grind here in Kearney, Nebraska. I'm also the owner of Cup & Co., which is a cocoa company that we're distributing across the country. And yeah, that's me.
All right, awesome. So, are you a Nebraska native?
Yes,
Okay.
Although I moved all over the state, but never quite out of the state. So, definitely a prairie girl here.
Awesome. Cool. So let's talk a bit about the co-ownership first. So talk to me about Baristas Daily Grind. What is it exactly?
All right, so it's a really long story, but I'll try to. Basically, right out of college, I got the opportunity to work at my dream job. I always wanted to work in a coffee shop. I don't know why. I guess when I was a little girl, and I was 8 years old, I had a really adult friend that used to take me to a coffee shop, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the whole wide world to sit and eat a bagel and have a latte, and I always thought, when I grow up, I want to do that. So when I was in college, about a freshman in college, I got to meet these really incredible people. And it's a long story how we got to meet, but basically the original founder of Baristas Daily Grind, her name is Kathy Sickler, and we're like soul sisters. She is like me 35 years from now, and I am her 35 years ago. She lovingly calls me her mentee. She's definitely my mentor, but she's become so much more than that. And we just have very old romantic souls, and so when she created this coffee shop, it was just incredible because she had all of this experience and wisdom and intuition that she brought to business, and I got to learn from her over the years. But I didn't ever see myself as the owner of Baristas Daily Grind. I'm always very happy to work for other people. We joke that I'm a gold star kind of person. I love getting the gold star. And so through a bunch of personal tragedy for the Sicklers, they created an incredible concept. One of the first drive-through coffee shops that was doing specialty coffee in the entire United States, way before Starbucks was a big deal, way before there were coffee franchises on every corner. But what we did was really radical and awesome. And our corporate trainer, Ryan Denhart, actually went on to win a bunch of awards. He's a top 3 specialty coffee finalist in the National Barista Competition. Paved a lot of roads for a lot of other companies that came after us. And we started franchising, opened 8 stores in 4 states. And we're working on 18 franchises, and we discovered that the legal team we had hired to write our franchise documents, they weren't legally authorized to practice that form of law. Mm-hmm. The original founders ended up in a lawsuit that lasted 8 years. They lost everything personally. They lost their shops. They lost their franchise. Excuse me, I get emotional about the story. They lost everything. They did win the initial lawsuit against the lawyer, but it was too late for the company, and so they had passed it off to their son. And as baristas, we actually went to the streets when we lost our shops, and we served coffee on the streets for 30 days until the shop that I have now opened. So baristas was always a huge part of my heart, a huge part of my life, a huge part of my identity. I never got to work for somebody who, you know, when you're a 19-year-old kid says, hey, take this and run with it. Use our money and create a wine division, you know, create something that is yours. You know, design us some franchise buildings. What are they going to look like? You've been to Europe. It was really, really awesome. But like I said, it still is a long path to ownership. I got married and left for a while, did a few other businesses. And then through a personal tragedy of my own, I had a pulmonary embolism and almost died. I ended up coming back to baristas, and shortly after that, my little sister was killed in a horrific car accident. So I'm part owner of baristas because my partner is my brother-in-law, and I never really wanted to be the owner. And it wasn't a matter of like not being capable of ownership. It was that I'm super passionate about a lot of things, and I didn't want to go to bed every night worrying about stuff I didn't think was important, like numbers and the actual business. I like more of the intuitive stuff. But when my little sister died, my brother-in-law came to work for baristas, and we just felt that it was the best thing for us to be able to raise their daughter the way that he wanted to. And we both were really passionate about the company and didn't want to see it disappear. So 4 years ago, my brother-in-law and I became the current owners of Baristas Daily Grind.
Got you. Wow, that was a very, very powerful story, and I love it every time I hear it because it just means a lot. Because we have met, for those who are listening, Jasmine and I met almost a year ago. Yep. So tell me about what happened almost a year ago, because it adds to the story of what this is, baristas.
So coming from such a huge history, such a tumultuous past, when I became the owner of Baristas Daily Grind, it was very important for us to kind of go back to our roots, go back to the foundation, and it was super essential for us to grow as a company. When we lost our shops, we were operating 3 stores in a little town here in Nebraska with only 30,000 people in the population. So we were doing about $1.6 million in coffee, and losing everything, getting taken to another location, not an ideal location, having to build that all over from nothing, was really, really hard. It took us 10 years to financially recover from the lawsuits that happened to the original owners. So it was always essential for Edgar and I to get a second store, to grow. If we didn't, there was just a lot of corporate coffee that was moving into our town, and we were going to get pushed out, and we were going to lose this, you know, incredible company that meant so much to so many people and was still doing incredible things. So when I met you guys, it was the 3rd year of Edgar and I's ownership, and we, through various different avenues, had tried to build a second shop twice, and it didn't work out. And so instead, we took over a little bank, and we flipped it and turned it into a double drive-through coffee shop in the south part of our town. And it was a huge, huge, huge monumental task to make that happen. And it sort of felt like the rebirth and the regrowth of our company. In the 3 years that we had been trying to achieve that goal, it was important that our company have a really solid foundation. So I sent my co-owner Edgar to Barista Camp, which is where he met a common friend of ours, Joe Gonzalez, the ex-barista. And I don't know, we just had a lot of the same ideologies. We're really passionate about people. We're really passionate about relationships. We're really passionate about leading. And, you know, social media wasn't a huge thing 10 years ago. I feel like it really, really exploded in the last 5-6 years, particularly things like Instagram. And so it's kind of amazing how you're able to make connections and talk to people you respect and admire through the phone or, you know, through an online chat. And so that's kind of how we met. We sort of met Joe, and I have a philosophy that there's different waves in my industry of coffee knowledge, and it's interesting that the Midwest gets overlooked a lot. There's a lot of things that people say we're about 3 years behind everybody else. And so as someone who's not defined by my area. I'm paying attention to what's happening all over the world. And I just noticed that there was this huge wave attitude going towards like progression, third wave coffee, fourth wave coffee, and there were some things that could be perhaps taught by going backwards a little bit. And so I wanted to kind of have a culture clash. I kind of wanted to bring New York to Nebraska and kind of bring some attention and awareness to the needs in our area, some of the challenges that we face just being so isolated, and how could we bring that awareness to those other areas along the coast that were, ready to go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So we invited Joe out to do a throwdown when we opened our second shop to kind of do a grand opening. And then I guess you guys you should take the story from there.
Right. Kind of got invited. Yes. So pretty much at around the time that Joe got invited was around the time that I met Joe. Like you said, Instagram is a networking platform, and it has been for quite some time now, especially over the past 3 years. I met a barista in Midtown by the name of Javi Alvarez, and he had just started hanging out with Joe. And literally the very first day that I met Joe, he told me, like, I was getting to know him, and I told him I just moved back. I had just moved back like 4 months ago from Nebraska, but about 3 hours east, 2-3 hours east. Yeah. In the capital. So Lincoln. And I was just telling him, I'm just like getting my feet wet again, just doing this, that, and the third. Cause I was helping Javi with, document his journey as a barista, because like latte art is like a very important part of his journey. So Joe is very good at that. And so Javi went under Joe's wing, and I kind of like stood from an outside perspective. And as I'm getting to know Joe, he's telling me that he's going to Nebraska within the next month or two. And we were all just talking like, well, that'd be super cool if we all went. And then we all did go. And then another barista friend of ours, Danny Mentado, also came. So it was really cool, because originally it was only supposed to be Joe, but I felt like us being there was appropriately serendipitous, in the sense that what we were just able to like bring and stuff like that, even though I had no intention of going back so soon. It was just amazing to be able to see specialty coffee from a different culture, from a different perspective, and also be able to share that from a virtually unbiased perspective, because prior to that I didn't have that much of an interest in the industry, other than, it's just a safe place. But I think that's what makes it great, that it is a safe place. So that's super cool, because, now there's stuff that we can look back on literally almost a year ago and just be like, it was a special moment. So talk to me about, you've been a co-owner for a couple years for this particular business, and then you do have another one, and you said you had prior business ventures to that. In 2018, how important is it for you to establish yourself when you're talking to this person and that person as a female business owner?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, because reflecting on the last 4 years as the owner of Baristas and then as the owner of Cup & Co., I've been working at lightning speed. In some ways it feels really slow, because I have all that prior history. I have all of that, other companies' heritage, like looking at me in the past. It feels like nothing was going fast enough. But when you really just reflect on the 4 years of my ownership, we've done incredible, amazing things. And so it's interesting, because I don't really compare myself to other people.
Right.
I'm in competition with myself. And probably my husband and I probably both do this. If we're in competition with anybody, it's people light years ahead in the industry. But I guess, in my opinion, if I'm shooting for up here, it doesn't matter if I get here. At least I'm not down here where everybody else is. That's not a radical thought or anything like that. But this year, to answer your question, I'm actually trying really hard to gain more balance, because one of the things that I find personally dangerous is thinking too highly of oneself. Like, I think that's a trap. And I think that anytime we start feeling really cocky and like we've got the answers figured out and we've got it down, then we're not learning anymore. And so for me, I'm actually this year trying to achieve a little bit more balance in my life. I'm trying to pull it back a little bit, and remember that it's important to feed my soul, to feed my spirit, to take care of me so that I have the energy to go out and do what I do. Right now we have about 23 employees. Cup of Co is doing really great things right now, and that's my cocoa company. So the cocoa company right now is an interesting company. Unlike the coffee shop where I need 8 employees each day from 6:30 in the morning until 9 o'clock to run through $2,000 worth of business, I can sell $2,000 worth of cocoa in 4 or 5 hours by myself. So they're two totally different companies. And the Cup of Co company actually requires a lot of travel. So I end up having to bounce around the States. I do a lot of coffee fests. I do a lot of trade shows, a lot of craft fairs. I'm picking up other coffee shops, other restaurants, people that I'm convincing that they should buy this cocoa, sell this cocoa. And it's a fun company, but there's not as much people-to-people interaction like there is in a coffee shop. And that's kind of where my passion is. My passion is in relationships. It's in connections with people. It's why there was no intimidation factor for me to like reach out to Joe and you guys and be like, hey, do you want to come out and visit us? I'm not interested really in whether people seem to be successful. I'm interested in what can I learn from you and what can you learn from me? How can we spark, creativity? And I like those connections. And I don't know, I probably would geek out over, like a certain celebrity.
Right.
If there's somebody that I absolutely love, but I'm not that into the titles and the fame, because a lot of that can be superficial. A lot of that can be marketed. A lot of that can be not real. And I feel that the success of my business lies in its genuineness and its like real attention to people and relationships. We have a saying at Baristas, it's called pure customer love. And it's not a tagline. It's not a fake thing that you can just stamp on stuff. It's about making real connections with people, about recognizing that you can have genuine moments, even if they're just through a drive-through window. And I think that's something that's kind of missing in society. I think we're really, really turning in a direction where people only care about what things look like. They only care about how things are perceived, who they know, not what they're learning, not how it's impacting their life, not how it's motivating change.
I like that a lot. Oh, definitely. I think it does. And I think like you said, you're looking for balance, and I like that balanced approach to it, because what you're seeking it kind of bypasses any of the labels and things like that people might just approach things with, which is part of the reason why I asked, not because I invest in it either, but because I understand that a lot of people operate like that. But I do like that a lot, because I think it just, as you say, with pure customer love, it allows people to dig deeper. And speaking of that, you mentioned earlier about versus how the double drive-through concept, like how it was there way before like anybody else had kind of made it a thing. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because since, I think it's kind of important, and having seen it and experienced it, like I know what it's like. So I think the listeners and viewers deserve to know what it is.
So it's different. In 2001, specialty coffee was not the ginormous thing that it is now. You could walk into a coffee shop and maybe or maybe not there were baristas that knew what they were doing. There certainly weren't USBC champions behind barista bars, but there was no such thing as a drive-through coffee shop in 2001 in the United States. I will stand behind that all day long. what we did is create a coffee shop, because out here, I should preface this by saying, out here in Nebraska, out here on the prairie, we have a lot of drive time. You know this, having lived in Lincoln for 7 years. There is a lot of drive time. There are people who live in rural communities that drive 40 minutes to get their groceries, to pay their bills, to do their shopping. And so you spend a lot of time in your car. And so when we talk about a drive-through coffee shop, it was necessary for our area because a lot of people are on the go. They're driving to get their lives accomplished, and they don't maybe have time to sit down, walk into a coffee shop, have a chat with somebody, and get a drink. So what we did that was revolutionary is that we had USBC champion baristas making incredible coffee drinks. We were using Roaster of the Year coffee. We were using incredible award-winning products. And so you were getting an amazing beverage, but the first shop that we created was literally almost as big as your kitchen table. It was tiny, and it was not a shack. It was incredibly beautiful. It was staccato walls and terracotta roofs and flowers galore, light posts and water fountains. And the founder had an idea that have the best product in the world, but if you couldn't get anybody to walk up to your window and try it, then what good did it do you? So she made this incredible building. It didn't even have a bathroom in it. Don't ask me how we got around city code. But when we created Baristas, we had no idea it was going to be this huge, successful franchise. We thought we were going to make coffee and get it, go home and, take potty breaks and have a snack and get restock out of the garage. Instead, the very first day that we opened Baristas, we had a line around the block, and it never stopped. The banks here had never understood that a coffee shop could be successful. They told us to take our business plan and cut it in half. They said we'd never do more than $400 or $500 of business a day. And the very first day that we opened Barista's Daily Grind, we did $872, and we never did less than that. And so it was revolutionary, and it was so revolutionary that other people were coming and measuring the outside of our building and trying to get builders to build permits for us. Because back in 2001, if you wanted a coffee stand that was like a drive-up, it was usually hitched to the back of a truck and got pulled around. They looked kind of like those sheds you see outside of like Lowe's or Builders or something like that. What we did wasn't like that. And so we had these 2 double drive-thrus, which meant that we could just drink after drink after drink. But what was amazing is that we were really into our customers. So we did not want to be snobby or snotty about coffee knowledge. In our area, a cappuccino usually means going to a gas station and pushing a little button and having some sugary water substance come out. So when people would come to our drive-thru and order a cappuccino, it was important for us to devise language that would help identify how much they knew about what they were ordering, and then to direct them towards something that they would love, and not in a snobby way. So for instance, in Nebraska, somebody would come up and say, I want a cappuccino. And we'd say, absolutely, would you like that wet or dry? A lot of foam or a little foam? And they would go, huh? And like the minute you knew that they were doing that, huh? They didn't know what a cappuccino was. And that wasn't designed to embarrass them. It was designed for us to say, you know what I think you'd really enjoy? We make a wonderful latte. It's 2 shots of espresso, beautiful steamed milk, and I'd love to throw a flavor in there. How does English toffee sound? And they would say, oh yeah, that sounds good. You didn't make the customer feel stupid. You didn't make them feel like they couldn't ask questions. In fact, it was a great opportunity for them to ask questions. And then they left with something delicious that they wanted to come back for because you just found something tailored perfectly for them. And that has continued down to our day. We now have 2 stores, 3 drive-thrus, and we do not have any electronic headsets. We do not have electronic menu boards. It's very important for us to come out and take people's orders, look at their eyes, find out what they want. Maybe they don't know, have a conversation, ask about their day. And through that, over the years, we've watched our interactions like literally change people's lives. And that's an awesome feeling when you can have a real, genuine connection with somebody and make a relationship that lasts years and years and years through a drive-through window. This is not McDonald's.
Right. Definitely. I love that. I love the relationship in it. I've always been a big fan going through going through the memories of the trip, that was always just a big thing for me. Just being able to see like real interactions. I think that's what made that trip so special. I mean, transition after college has not necessarily been the easiest, but you look back on things like that, you're like, man, that was awesome. So let's change gears a little bit. You said that as far as the drive-through window is concerned, you are putting a lot more people in it as opposed to automation. So with that being said, though, what do you see within your particular industry? And I'm not just talking coffee, I'm talking like cocoa as well, because I know that's your other business as well. Like, what do you see happening currently that, like what current trends or anything like that, like be it more tech, it could be like more tech based, or it can be more like within like the food itself. But what do you see happening that like kind of excites you about what's going on? I think this is a very niche question for like your industry.
Right. Well, I've been saying for a couple of years now that I think that the coffee world has been in a bubble, and that wasn't a very popular thing to say. I've had a lot of people that are like, oh no, the coffee industry is doing better than ever. But I've been doing this now for 18 years, and it's amazing to me to watch how we went from, one of the only coffee shops in our town to the 8th or 9th coffee shop in our town in a matter of 10 years. And I, in particular, when we lost our original shops, I've watched 5 coffee shops open and close in my old location. And in my old location, we were doing, $1.3 million. And so I know that location can be successful. I know that location is ideal, and it was great for our town. To watch other coffee shops open and close, open and close, open and close. I've been saying for a while that the industry's in a bit of a bubble. Everyone seems to think that my industry is this romantic, amazing idea. Like, when I retire, I'm going to open a coffee shop. And I think, God, why would you want to do that much work when you retire? But it's a romantic idea. People like the idea of sitting around and enjoying beverages. But in the industry, there's so much more that goes into it than that. And a lot of people have been challenging the industry, changing things, and that's great. I'm all for innovation. I'm all for new trends arriving. One of the trends that came up was pour-over coffee. And I remember the first time I heard about pour-over coffee, I kind of laughed and I said, you mean the thing that my parents did every day in my house my entire life growing up? Like, that's the new trend? And people are like, oh yeah. And because I had so much experience in the industry, I recognized really early on that was not going to be a trend that Barista's Daily Grind would pick up on. The reason being, it takes 4 to 6 minutes to do a proper pour-over. And even if you're charging $5 or $6 a cup for that, in my drive-through windows, I can do $5 a minute. So cash flow wise, a pour-over station, while it is neat, while it tastes good, while it's amazing, it's not really going to pay your bills. And I watched a lot of companies grab onto that trend and quickly fail, because at the end of the day, in the area that I'm at, people do not want to wait for minutes for a drink.
Yeah, for your particular. Yep, I get that.
They will do that at home, though, which is why the pour-over is so popular.
Oh, yeah. Because,
in the morning doing your own routine, why not spend 4 or 6 minutes making an amazing cup of coffee?
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, I'm watching coffee shops open on every corner, and every single person has an attitude about how what they're doing is the coolest and what they're doing is the neatest. And in my area, that's kind of dangerous. Like, I think that what you need to do is have passion and know why. And I know that's really popular now for people to say, what's your why? But to know why you're doing what you're doing and to not lose sight of that. It's important to not jump on to every trend. That doesn't mean don't learn about it, don't find out what's going on there. But some of these trends cost a lot of money, and you can learn from big corporations. Starbucks went through and did a ton of renovation trying to bring in pour-over stations, and then they ripped them out. Food comes in and then food goes out. So I think that as far as the industry is going, we've gotten so obsessed with third wave, fourth wave. People are starting to talk about things like water purification and how that's so important. Those of us that were following the specialty coffee standards years ago, water is important. What is coffee if it's not water? Like, that's a duh, which is why our franchises had water filtration systems 15 years ago. So what I actually see happening in the industry is almost a returning back to the basics. All trends, all of these fads, they're great. Innovation is great. I'm glad that things are getting smarter. I like that we are focusing more on the origins and the farmers and taking care of all of the hands that coffee passes through. That is important. It is vitally important that we educate our customers about where their product comes from, why they're paying the prices they're paying for it. But as to preparation and all of that kind of stuff, I think that just needs to be your why. If your coffee shop is blowing things up and doing a lot of sciencey things, like take Portola in California, that's kind of their gig, innovation. They're also really concerned about their farmers and the beans and educating their customers and where things are going. But know your why. Know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then don't lose sight of that. And it doesn't matter what trends come and go. If what you're doing is making you money, and at the end of the day, that's why we're all in this. None of us really, have a business just because we want to have a business. We need to have a living. We need to be able to pay our bills. We need to be able to support our staff. Then stick true to that. Be proud of it. Like, work on finessing that and making that better. Make your baristas stronger in their skills. Give them more education. Give them more opportunities to travel and to be able to go to origin and to bring back that passion. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't chase after every single thing that comes across your table or that you read about in Fresh Cut magazine or Barista magazine. Learn about it, know about it, but do that research before you open your cafe. Know why you're doing what you're going to do, and then hold on to that and don't let go.
I love it. So to continue, because this segues into my next question, is there anything that you haven't said that you can use as an object lesson for anybody listening that wants to follow what you're doing?
I think a lot of people say this, but I don't think a lot of people practice it. So for me, pure customer love starts with pure staff love. I invest in my employees, and I don't mean superficially or even with a paycheck. Yes, I pay them. I'm not saying I don't pay them. But I think it is so important that we deal with people, that we train people, and that we recognize that our staff can be an extension of our family. So I have a rule that works in my area. I try really hard to hire freshmen from the university that's across the street with us. And I do that for a reason. They're going to be going to school here for the next 4 years. If they go to grad school, maybe 5 or 6 years. And because of that, I don't have a high turnover. And the more I talk to other people in the industry, that is unique. Most people have a barista for 12 months or maybe 18 months. My baristas stay 3, 4, 5, some of them 6 years. When you have that kind of retention, you have to build real relationships. We all know that you cannot, be in a relationship with somebody for 4 or 5 years if you do not have good communication, if you do not like each other. And so I sit each of my employees down and I make them a promise. And I try really, really hard to keep that promise. I promise them the perfect trifecta. I say you will love what you do, who you work for, and who you work with. And at some point in your life or your career, you're going to give up 1, 2, or all 3 of those things for a paycheck. So working for me isn't going to get you rich. It's not going to make you the most money in the world. But when you love who you work for, when they actually care about you as a person and not just what you bring to the company, I get so much more from my employees. It's a terrible analogy, and they all laugh at me for using it, but if I can't get them to drink the Kool-Aid, then it's not going to work. And we have Kool-Aid. It's pure customer love, pure barista love. It is a family. And it doesn't mean that we all think the same. It doesn't mean that we practice all the same faith or believe the same thing. It really boils down to communication, listening, treating people as you would want to be treated, and making sure that we as a family work together. And then what that does for my business is they all personally invested. I'm not there. They're still doing what I've taught them to do because it's a part of them. It's not like me looking over their shoulder saying like, are you following the rules? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And it's treating them like they're adults. Most of the people that start working for me start working at 18 or 19. And I say to them right away, I'm not your mom. I'm going to treat you like an adult. But baristas is a safe place for them to make mistakes, for them to grow, for them to, learn about themselves and learn about our community. And the awesome part about that is it comes back to them 100-fold. They get job offers, they get, opportunities through the university. I had one barista who literally was given her master's degree across the counter of baristas. They literally asked her, would you like to get your master's? We'll pay for it. And here's a teaching position. Just because of the relationships that were built across the counter with our customers. Like, where does that happen? Where does that happen? So, a lot of people say invest in your employees, but that's hard. It means giving of yourself. It means you may have things on your docket that you think you're going to do that day, and you don't get to do them. Somebody in your family is hurting, or somebody in your family is confused, or somebody in your family just needs something that they're not getting somewhere else in their life. But I don't have really high turnover. That pays me back in customer relationships. It pays me back in speed because these kids know what those 6 cars in line and those 10 people that walk up are going to order before they even walk in the door. It becomes something bigger than a business, and it becomes something bigger than a job.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Vices and Vultures and considering being a supporter of this project.
Even leaving a review on your preferred podcast platform goes a long way for us.
There is more information about this episode, as well as who we are, in the show notes.
This includes all of our social media links, so you can see us and not just hear us.
Vices and Vultures is brought to you by Aesthetic and is based in the great state of New York.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes.
And tune in next time to Vices and Vultures.